Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. In case you've forgotten, I lived under a rock somewhere. I am 6 feet tall, 245 pounds, the man, myth, and legend, icon, leader of the F4L, and icon of all entertainment. I am the one and only Sean Jazz Stevens. You guys better know me as Jazz Vengeance. Anywho, or Jazz Fitness for those other people. So I don't come on here often, and there's not much, I, due to the fact I'm so busy doing other things. For example, promoting the other channel, promoting the, making sure people's dreams are met and making sure the Dream Masters are up and running, and honoring the show that my son and I started many years ago by, really innovating and starting the whole posting of dream matches on YouTube way back in the day. And what made it work is the fact that I had wrestling knowledge due to the fact that I've actually been in the wrestling business for 25 years. Back then it was less, obviously. And my son was 11 at the time when we started, and now he's 18, and I'm older as well. And years later, it's still growing. And, to me, it's not really about how many viewers you get or how many people subscribe as much as I want to make sure what I say is meant well and what I do is meaningful. And I think I do a pretty good job of that. If there's one thing that I am mostly guilty of, is that of becoming and being, someone who is outspoken and speaks from the heart to try to, see some different viewpoints. I've always been someone who can take something and look at it in 3 different ways. This is something I have had. Just set aside from the wrestling ability and the knowledge I have, I also have 2 college degrees, one in human services, one in film, as well as my wrestling knowledge and experience as well, combat sports and stuff like that. So, first of all, on the rip, I want to say happy holiday to everybody. Hope you guys are all having a happy and healthy and safe holiday season to all of you guys' families and whatnot. Whatever holiday is you celebrate, whether it be Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever. I wish you guys all a happy whatever it is, and I hope you guys have a productive one and a healthy and safe one. As you can see, I am wearing the mask. And why am I wearing the mask? Well, as a sign that I don't mind wearing a mask. It is what it is. I don't see anybody doing this on their videos, so I'm an innovator and a role model. I try to be. So there you have it. This is the official Jazz icon, Sean Jazz Stevens face mask, of course. One of my loyal F4L had sent me, so thank you to them. So what is my purpose here today? So a couple things really. So thankfully, hopefully you guys have heard about my podcast by now, the F4L Dream Masters Radio. You can hear it on Spotify or Anchor, or, podcasts or whatever. And hopefully you guys have heard a lot of that, backstories and different things that I'm sharing on that podcast. I really started that podcast because I felt like someone needed to be some type of, difference. Someone had to entertain. Someone had to be a voice of, inspiration, where the world around us is so negative and so, you can't go on the news or the TV without someone, saying something negative about what's going on in the world. We all know what's going on. And I think it's really, all the people out there, I think it's really important to, celebrate the good things in life and the good, people out there that are doing good things rather than focus on the negative, because there's a lot of good things going on with the negative. So that being said, so as you guys know, I've been in the wrestling business for 25 years or so forth. I've lost count really. But back in November, I did celebrate the milestone. It's been a long while since I've been in. Since I started November 4th, 1998, I began wrestling. I was 18 and 6 months before I graduated high school. On my podcast last night, I had, told kind of the in-depth story of my journey through that, and also the ups and downs and the pros and cons and so forth last night on my podcast. So make sure if you want to hear the full extent, you go on there and listen. But one thing I wanted to address is the thing that I had talked about in the beginning of that video. And that beginning was, you see, yesterday I made the mistake of falling into one of these traps we hear about. Say, I'm someone who, if you ask me a question, I will give you an honest answer, and I will tell you what, my perspective or whatever else, and I will tell you my opinion. Just, if you want to hear an answer, don't ask. If you don't want to hear the answer of the question, or you don't want to have an honest answer, you want someone to answer your way, then don't ask the question. Someone had mentioned Kenny Omega of the AEW, who is the current AEW champion and in the Wrestling Observer Hall of Fame, and had talked about how there's no one in NXT that is better than one Kenny Omega. Now, I was being sarcastic last night, but also truthful and honest, and I spoke from the heart, kind of making light of it. And I had mentioned a couple names of people in AEW in NXT, who I think are pretty interesting people and people who you should be watching. Karrion Kross, who I've met over the years, and I've known him better as Killer Kross. And he's a really good athlete, and he's really one to be, he would give Kenny Omega a run for his money. I also feel that if you're just taking NXT, then Kenny Omega wouldn't really do well against Karrion Kross, I feel. I think that Damian Priest, who's kind of new to the NXT world, I think he has the it factor. I think he can do some big things, and he's very believable. And Pat McAfee, who is a kind of a sports broadcaster from the sports world. He's from football, and he had a podcast. I want to say something here. In the beginning of this whole thing, back when I watched the live pay-per-views back, going back a while now, I haven't actually watched live action wrestling on TV in quite some time. I refuse. And again, that's out of respect to the people who I have, met over the years, have talked with and worked with over the years. In my respect for the business, I won't watch anybody's wrestling program because I'm not happy with anyone. But that being said, that doesn't mean I don't have respect for the business, because I still do. It's out of respect for them and the business, I'm not watching. So that's that. But what I wanted to say is Pat McAfee is someone who, when I used to watch these, prior to the pay-per-views, there's always these pre-shows to all these shows, and they always bring these expert panels, which I always take exception with, because I want to know how these people are qualified to be expert panels. If you're writing a column or on a podcast, but yet you've never been in the wrestling world or in the wrestling business, that doesn't make me think you're an expert on it. You can read a book about becoming a brain surgeon, but that doesn't make you a brain surgeon. Okay? You can write a paper about how to perform open heart surgery, but that doesn't make you a heart doctor. So writing a column or being a podcaster or whatever who's never been in the wrestling world, never booked a wrestling show, never been to a wrestling school, that doesn't make you any kind of an expert panel on wrestling. That just means you're a fan of wrestling who wants to voice your opinion. And that's what you should be presented as, not an expert on something. All right? Cool. As long as that's understood. But, a lot of these people believe in the pioneer of all of these fine gentlemen, these whatever, and they, whatever. I'm going off the tangent. What I wanted to talk for the Pat McAfee. My point on that is, see, Pat McAfee is one of those people I used to see in these beginning of these shows, and I used to think, oh, here's another one. Him and the other guy, Sam Roberts, who I absolutely can't stand Sam Roberts. And I used to see them go back and forth on their shows. And one of my biggest things about guys outside the business, who shoot on the business, who've never been in, is you can't talk about something unless you've done it. That's just my feeling on it. And again, the whole thing about being on an expert panel and not actually been in the business or any capacity. Now, Pat McAfee is someone who had a spot with NXT, and he worked with Adam Cole. Now, someone even brought up Adam Cole, and I'm not huge on Adam Cole either. Just want to point that out. But I can say is this. I'm a guy who respects promos, and I'm not watching live wrestling, but what I am doing is listening to the reviews, and I hear highlights, and my wife, who still watches all these programs, to her credit, who still has also been in the wrestling business, in the wrestling world, she still watches these programs. I refuse. I am too busy scheduling my own programs and working on everything else. But Pat McAfee, when I've heard promos he's done, he is by far the best promo giver right now in all of wrestling. I don't care what company it is. Pat McAfee has a natural gift to get the heat without very much trying at all. As being someone who is prided and known for his promo work, I give Pat McAfee all the props for being able to not only cut promos, but when it came time to perform in a ring, when you have seen these celebrities or these people outside wrestling before step into a ring and have these matches against the star they're feuding with, whether it be Bam Bam Bigelow and Lawrence Taylor, God rest his soul, or half a dozen other different people, right? Mike Tyson, Roddy Piper, whatever the case, Big Show, Floyd Mayweather. Take any scenario, but those matches where, even though they might be considered iconic, I mean, the star or the celebrity being brought in was not, anywhere near as dominating as the performer. But when Pat McAfee went in there with Adam Cole, he looked like a legit star who knows what he's doing. He had ring psychology. He knew how to sell, how to reach an audience that's not there. And he knows how to get the heat, how to sell properly. He has athleticism. He did things that most guys his size and not experienced in the ring can do. Now, my only thing is he did some flippy stuff, which I'm not overly fond of the flippy stuff. I don't think you need it all the time. But what I did like is it wasn't too much. Okay, it wasn't too much. And he did it to a bare minimum, which is smart. So Pat McAfee, Damian Priest, and Killer Cross, or Karrion Kross, I suggested were all better than Kenny Omega, and I had said that they have respect at least for the wrestling business because they've actually trained in wrestling. Unlike Kenny Omega, his friends the Young Bucks, who, got their training in Dave Meltzer's mattress out back in his backyard. Now, I was being sarcastic, and it had nothing to do. So I don't know if people took that as a reference to something else or an innuendo, but it wasn't. It was my intention was the fact that they're not trained; they're backyard wrestlers. They trained in the backyard. That's how they got their training. They've never actually had proper training by any reputable school at all. I've been told and heard from other people that, any time that they had showed up, they didn't think they needed it. And frankly, me being from the business, who, cut his teeth in wrestling, went to a national wrestling school, and I've helped train some guys who've gone on to do other things and whatever, and worked with a lot of guys who I've highly respected. I find it interesting how anybody can get into the ring with these people when I myself would never get in the ring with someone who's not properly trained. That's asinine, that's ridiculous. Because when you step into a wrestling world, in a wrestling ring, and you're putting yourself, your safety on the line, as well as their own. Just because I know how to do something doesn't mean the person knows how to take it, how to give it. And I'm not going to put myself and my health and risk on the line for any of those people. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm 245 pounds. I'm not going to be expected to do swanton bombs off the top of on top rope and stuff like that. It's not something I'm going to do. And it's not something that not everyone needs to do. So, this is what they are all about. And the other part of that is, that was the comment I said on Twitter. It was a very small thing. And then it has blown up to people trying to talk about yours truly questioning my methods or my knowledge or whatever they're trying to shoot on, my experience. Those of you guys who know who I am and what I'm about and what I've done, you guys know what I'm about and what I've done, and I've backed up everything that I've ever said, including a prediction I made. So, I don't know what I'm talking about, right? I want to take you guys back on this channel to August 25th, 2019. I want you to go back to listen to that show, that's video that I made here on YouTube. If you go back to that video, you will hear my prediction on AEW. Now, it was a night when, I guess it was either the first official pay-per-view or it was the preview to set up for this TV show, whatever the case may be. And I had said some things about AEW, how I wasn't sold on them back then, August 25th, 2019. That was before Dynamite, by the way, because they would debut like a couple weeks later, basically. But the relevancy here is I had said certain things in that video about Tony Khan not knowing how to run a business and how nothing else he's done has been working out. And that, why do people think this is going to be successful? And then I also said certain things they needed to stay away from for them to be legit and be different. And what happened? Let me ask you guys this. What I had said, now this is on the night where apparently in this pay-per-view that Adam Page, the Hangman, the up-and-coming star, was supposed to face Chris Jericho for a championship. And I had said that Adam Page needs to win this title. Because if he doesn't, then it's just going to be like any other wrestling company where, the boys are going to run the boys and that's it. And you're going to hire your friends only, people who you're friends with and no one else. And wouldn't you know, who won the pony? So, not long after that, what is it now? It's December of 2020 now. Everything that I had said about them back on August 25th, 2019, I said that the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and Kenny Omega, all these guys need to stay away from the titles if they want to be a legit business, right? What happened? And also Adam Page needed to win over Jericho to be not the same as everyone else, right? Okay, well, I said that, and look what happened. The Young Bucks are currently your tag team champions. Cody Rhodes was the NXT champion for a little while, and he is all over the show, much like back in the day when Triple H was all over the show, WWE. Cody Rhodes is now doing the same thing. And, of course, Jericho would win, obviously, as you guys know, would defeat Adam Page, become the champion, and hold that until Jon Moxley would show up, take that from him. And wouldn't you know, look who won again, and it's Kenny Omega is now the champion. Yeah, I know. Now, in a year's time, they've hired more legitimate wrestlers that I've heard of and I've known. But it doesn't make any difference because the product's the same. And those predictions came true. They stuck with hiring people who no one's ever heard of on a regular basis. They hired a bunch of friends of Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Omega have willingly said who they're not going to hire because they didn't like them back in the day. Why would they hire them then? Which shows that they have no business ethic. And then going back, a lot of people wonder, like, well, what would you have done? What would be your roster? Who would you have gone after back then? Well, they announced that they were starting AEW in, January of 2019. It was like a legit thing after they had that successful house show that they did. It was a pay-per-view where they sold out a mediocre building. But then, they had almost a year before that announcement that they were going to start this and when they premiered Dynamite. And in that time, they had a lot of time they could have hired people. They could have made deals. There were people whose contracts were up in December of 2019. They could have brought AJ in if they wanted to. AJ Styles, the Good Brothers. They could have brought CM Punk in if they did things the right way and had a presentable story. And since they have the money, why not? And fans have wanted to see CM Punk for a long time. Listen to the crowd over on the enemy territory, right? All you hear them chanting is for that before they started piping in their own chants. But still, when you have a live crowd, that is the person who they want to see. And you guys dropped the ball on that. You could have brought him in like that. You could still bring him in. At this point, though, all of the people whom you have hired and since then and around then, you've gotten even worse. And then I said you got to stay away from hiring these people from WWE who are coming in there who, but they did that too. All right. Matt Hardy went over there, did a lot of good, right? Getting, Matt Hardy and sports-based wrestling. Again, these are all things that I said in this video way back on August 25th of 2019. And, it was said it was going to be presented as a sports-based wrestling show. There's nothing sports-based about someone levitating to a ring, teleporting to a ring. No one who gets dunked underwater comes back out of a different character in the same spot. That's not sports-based wrestling. We don't do that in football, basketball, baseball, or any other sport. So, take that away. Everyone's supposed to be getting the same pay, right, in AEW? Well, look again, because from what I'm talking, I told you guys I was going to ask some friends of mine in the AEW roster about the realities of these contracts. Yeah, they're all getting paid pretty well, more so than any of them have ever dreamed. But guess what? Not everyone has that health insurance, but guess who does? Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Cody Rhodes have it because they're vice presidents of the company. Guys like Orange Cassidy and all those guys, they do not have the health insurance that everyone else does. So that's not equal pay, is it? Equal rights, equal anything? Jericho's, I didn't hear anything about that, but I did hear that not everyone is getting paid the same. And also I have heard that not everyone has the same perks and the same things in their contracts. So FTR, who credits themselves as being one of the greatest tag teams in the world, got to have their match with the Young Bucks. Young Bucks who are not trained properly in a wrestling ring versus guys who are trained by actual wrestlers who have traditional wrestling background. So it makes perfect sense for the backyard guys to go over. This is since then. So as far as people selling me, I don't know what I'm talking about, or that I don't see writing on the wall and I have no idea what I'm talking about, I want you to go back to August 25th, 2019, before Dynamite started. Listen to that show and listen to things that I had to say. And tell me how much of those things came accurate versus what is not. Did all of those people hold titles not long after that? Yes, every single one of them. Jericho, Omega, Young Bucks, Cody, all had titles within the range. Are they always plastered all over T? You bet they are. And then you have people like Dave Meltzer, who's on the payroll for AEW, by the way. Spoiler alert. Yes, I got that from some people, my friends in the business, too. You see, a lot of people put merit into things that Dave Meltzer says on his, whatever he calls it, the Wrestling Observer newsletter or whatever. The newsletter to people who are actually loyal to the wrestling business refer to it more like the Inquirer of Wrestling. So, how many people watch the news on a regular basis? And I can tell you that, for the most part, a lot of people question how the weatherman a lot of people want to know, my thoughts on Dave Meltzer's like analyzm or whatever, and I compare him to the weatherman because if you watch the news on a regular basis, then you know that a lot of people's frustration is the weatherman says, "Oh, today it's going to snow or rain," and the opposite will happen. It won't snow or rain, and then the weatherman will say, "Well, the thing moved out to the west," right? Or you guys remember John Edwards? He was one of those guys that was on TV and could talk to the dead, right? By the way, he's been called out as being a fraud. It's been proven that he uses this old politrick where he'll go out there in front of a crowd and fish for little things. Like he'll say, "Oh, I'm getting something with the beginning of an A," and then someone happens to have an aunt or uncle or whatever who died with the A in it. Then he'll fish for information, and he's talking to the dead. Dave Meltzer is that individual. He says, "Oh, this is what's going to happen on the show. This is my prediction." And then when it doesn't happen the way he says it does, then it's, "Oh, they changed the storyline at the very last minute," or "This is what changed right here because, this is why." When he has no knowledge of why. He didn't really know. He didn't have any insight to what was going on, the fundamentals of how it got there. He just wanted to, do his weather prediction. It's going to rain tomorrow. He wanted to say, "Oh, it's going to rain." He said, "Oh, I'm getting something with the letter A. And it's AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan." Right? That's what Dave Meltzer is. He's that guy. He's the John Edwards of wrestling. He makes these fake predictions. People bank him on that. People credit him for being a wrestling knowledge. What hurts my heart is that there are people in the wrestling business, higher up than I have, who have more experience than I do, who credit him more than he should ever have any credit. And there are a lot of us who absolutely can't stand him because of what he really is. And I don't backtrack anything I say, and I back up everything I have to say. And apparently, the lesson I learned last night is, one, you can't talk about everyone's favorite, wrestlers, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and you definitely can't talk about Dave Meltzer in a negative light publicly on Twitter, apparently, because their fans will come after you. Fans will, tell you what's what and how wrong I am, because I don't know anything about anything, right? Well, I guess all that time in the wrestling business for 25 years, going to wrestling school and doing all those things that I had done already, being taught by Killer Kowalski and, a number of years ago, same trainer as several other, Hall of Famers and people who have gone on to do big things. And, had that experience, and, silly me, who has also competed in combat sports, who has the praise of guys like Dan Pewter, Ken Shamrock, who I work with, who have a lot of respect for what I can do as well. Never mind all that. I don't know anything about wrestling, but yet back on October 25th, before we even saw what AEW Dynamite would be, a year later, everything was true. Dancing routines, that's sports-based? Come on, man. And the Young Bucks even referred to them guys as the Circus Soleil of wrestling? Oh my God. Get out of here. Wrestling's wrestling for a reason. We all fell in love with wrestling for what it really was back in the day. If this was presented to me back in the 80s, I wouldn't be a fan of wrestling. And if it wasn't for the passion and the respect I have for the business, I would keep my mouth shut and stay back and just watch everything else unfold. But since no one else wants to say anything, since no one else wants to speak up and, tell the reality of it, I'll be that guy. In the wrestling world, in my early days of ECW, I was seen as the mouthpiece of the fans, right? I would be the guy that when the heel would come into town and talk smack about the town, I would tell the heel what the fans would like to tell him, and then I would back it up by, hitting him with the gavel and put him in the Black Rose, or hitting him with the deep fried Oreo driver, and that was it, right? I back up everything I say. I support everything I say because everything I say, I believe wholeheartedly, and I have the background and the experience to back those things up, and I have the accredited people to back those things up that I say. And until someone can tell me, anything of merit why I'm wrong, please do. If you could tell me why, or you can prove to me why Dave Meltzer has any kind of relevance, I'm open to listen to it. I don't have to agree with it, but I'll give you the respect to tell me an intelligent thing why Dave Meltzer's opinion should ever matter when he's never been in, produced, or anything else. He does a rating system which is flawed and ridiculous. And, you know, it's just how it is. And also I want to point out, if Dave Meltzer, we all know, is on the payroll for AEW. We also know he has been in the past associated with New Japan, which, go figure, those companies get the highest praise of all of his numbers, right? It's been proven that he's gotten money from these people. He's been on the payroll for these people. But yet he can talk about what WWE's doing. And he can say what's wrong with Impact Wrestling. But now AEW and Impact Wrestling is working together. So guess what's going to happen now? Dave Meltzer is going to talk some praise about AEW, about Impact Wrestling now. Now all of a sudden, people from Impact Wrestling get big matches and big things because his favorite wrestlers are going to be working with them. Sorry. You can't prove to me or tell me why he's merited. I don't care how long he's been around it. A guy holding the camera for X amount of years has been around the wrestling business, holding around a camera. It doesn't make him a wrestling expert. It means he knows how to hold a camera. Dave Meltzer knows how to watch a wrestling match, but doesn't know how to put it together, how to run it. But he can tell you how good or bad it is. Makes sense, right? And he gives praise to these other people. Man, I gotta tell you, I've fixed this mask I don't know how many times. I am still gonna wear it though, as obnoxious as it is, because it's the right thing to do. But look, I'm not going to go on a tangent any longer about why I think I'm right or whatever. Just go back and listen to the August 25th show. Just look at all of the things I said. All of those things, by the way, are documented. All of those things are factual based because I did the research to find out about these people. Unlike all these other people who... So to all the keyboard warriors out there who don't think I know what I'm talking about, who question my knowledge or whatever, go back and listen to the August 25th show and tell me that everything that happened, what I said was going to happen back then, didn't happen up until now. If you can tell me, by all means, tell me what happened to all of those people. What's Adam Page doing right now, by the way? Who is going for that title? Isn't he basically like, what, a jobber, basically? Come on, guys. You put the guys over who you are friends with you, and they bring in Rusev, Miro. Miro's over there. John Moxley was over there with the champion for a while because he's the big name. Gone. He lost to Kenny Omega. All that for Kenny Omega. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this has been my rant, I guess you'd say, on the state of pro wrestling. I'm not watching any of it, listening to it, and I still heard the reviews. I'm not listening to people like Dave Meltzer, fuck him. I listen to people who've been in the business. I talk to guys who I talk to who are on either show. Because in the reality of it is what you guys don't realize is there have been many times where people have reported things that aren't actually accurate, like numbers and stuff like that being false, or someone underselling versus when they're full. And I can tell you, because I've been in many of those places, how accurate they really are and what the reality is. So I'm not happy with any of those products right now, WWE or NXT to the most part, or AEW, definitely not Impact. So there's really no outlets out there for me to watch wrestling right now. I mean, I've heard Ring of Honor has a TV deal now. Back when I was in Ring of Honor, they didn't have a TV deal. But, you know, I would suggest maybe looking at something more like that than this, whatever this is. Because this is not what I grew up with liking. This is not what I support in wrestling. I definitely don't back people who are not properly trained in a ring. And I definitely would not put anyone who's not properly trained in a wrestling ring, who didn't put the dues in like that, any kind of a wrestling Hall of Fame, and how dare you put someone in a Hall of Fame who's not done that at least. So, I am 6 feet tall, 245 pounds. I'm the man, myth, legend, icon of entertainment, leader of the F4Ls. I am the one with the bulging biceps, the perfect pecs, and the washboard abs. Bow and worship the greatness that is Sean Jazz Vengeance. Steven, you just got jazzed by vengeance. May all your dreams come true, people. Peace.